All right, so fuck yes, welcome after the hype. New host, Bryan Dressel. With me, as always, is Chewie Darsow.
Hi.
Emily Blake.
Yay.
And the no longer dead Jonathan Hardesty.
I got better.
He was a zombie, and his hair didn't actually grow. His face just receded, so his brain or his beard looks much bigger now.
Yeah, his hair didn't grow at all, but his beard did.
My skin shrunk, so yeah, the beard came out.
That is exactly why people thought people were vampires, because that
Science.
happens when you die.
John is a vampire.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can't look at myself in the mirror. It sucks.
Well, yeah.
So you have no idea what's going on with your beard.
No.
You have to have people
He
draw
only
you.
gets to see the beard, not the rest of his
Impressively
face.
coiffed for
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
being able to see it. Go you.
He's
Yay.
just trying to see it. He's just
It's
It's
quaffing
like
it.
that scene of What We Do in the Shadows where they're drawing
Yeah,
pictures
exactly.
of each other.
Which just got picked up for 10 episodes. Go
Yes.
What We Do in the
Nice.
Shadows.
Piss off, ghost.
It would have been nice if they shot it in L.A.
Well, yeah,
They
because
shot
then
the
we...
pilot here.
What,
but
so
they're-
you could be on it?
Well, my friend actually worked on the pilot, and it was like one of the happiest jobs she's
Oh.
ever had. So now that they're moving everything to New York, she's really bummed.
Bummer. Still excited for the show, though.
Yeah.
Special guest this week and next week-ish. I'm not sure when these episodes are all coming out, but we have Sam Garrison back.
Hello.
Sam, I was really excited to have you on for one of these episodes. The other one was just a very happy coincidence because I figured you'd have a good time with that one. But the one that you want to talk about is the one you don't want to talk about, which is what we're talking about today.
Yay!
Everyone's favorite Academy Award-winning movie. But before we do that, we'll move into a Where Have You Been Doing? I'll go first. I saw The Bronze. Anybody heard of The Bronze?
No one did.
Yeah.
Oh,
no-
it was that comedy, right?
Yeah, with Michelle or Melissa Rauch or Ranch. Could just be Ranch. I don't know.
It's not ranch.
It's probably not Ranch. But it's a girl who she wrote and directed the movie, or I'm not sure if she directed. I know she wrote it. And it's about a girl who won bronze in the Olympics forever ago, and now she is like small town famous and is very proud of her small town fame, but does nothing with her life. And she's just an awful human being, and she's hysterical. And I really enjoyed the hell out of it. It was funnier than I ever thought it would be. It has Sebastian Stan in it, and they have one of the greatest sex scenes I've ever seen in a movie.
Where you never get to see Sebastian's penis.
No,
They did a lot of work with lights in that.
Yeah, there's a lot of shooting around, but imagine the most ridiculous version of two professional gymnasts having sex, and that's what they go for.
Yeah.
And it's very funny.
I was just like watching it and be like,
Do they stick
I'm
the
really
landing?
impressed, but how do
they
you
do.
achieve orgasm when you have to do that much work?
But I thought it was a really funny movie. I can see why people didn't like it because she is so unlikable the whole way through. It's like the last 10 minutes, maybe she kind of gets redeemed, but even then it's like, kind of. But she's just kind of awful the whole way through. But if you like her sense of humor and you think her jokes are funny, you'll probably enjoy it.
Yeah.
So I would watch.
I like the movie more than I like The Big Bang Theory, which is apparently what she's famous for.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you want to check it out, I'd say like watch half the Red Band trailer because there's a lot of the jokes from the movie in it. But if you like the jokes you see in that so far, then you can watch the whole thing. If you think it's not for you, it's not going to be. But that's it for me.
For me, I finished watching Grimm, staring at Emily.
I'm surprised you're not talking about Infinity War.
Oh, well,
We've
can't
got two
really talk
episodes.
about it.
Yeah,
People
that's true.
still need to see Infinity
Oh, that's
War,
true.
so it's hard to talk about that.
Right, okay.
But I finished watching Grimm. I'm very sad. I forgot how freaking emotional the last two episodes are. It's like Ian McGregor in Moulin Rouge, where all your friends are dying, and you're just like, wah! And that's Nick Burkhardt in the end of Grimm.
Is Grimm done?
Yeah,
Oh,
it
okay.
had 6 seasons. And the funny thing is we got our hair cut yesterday, and since I finished Grimm, I really, really like Reggie Lee. He's a great actor. First ever noticed him in the first Fast and Furious movie. He's a character actor. You see him pop up here and there. Lately, he's been doing some sitcom stuff. He was on LA to Vegas for one episode. He was on Brooklyn Nine-Nine for one episode. And we get our hair cut yesterday, and he walks behind me, goes to the bathroom in his robe because he's getting his hair cut, and I'm just sitting there going, huh? Like,
He gets his haircut just
Did I-
like I do.
Did you tell him you've been watching Grimm like every day
I
forever?
wanted to, but I never saw him come back from the bathroom,
Oh.
so I don't really. He
weird.
must, because Brian was getting his hair
Maybe there's a
cut. So I
portal
You
went-
in
just
there.
told the whole world that Reggie Lee pooped at the salon.
maybe not. He could have. He could have gone to wash his
That's pretty
hands.
grim.
I don't know. But it would have
Hey,
been
John's back.
Dad jokes.
I got better.
But honestly, being in LA, I don't see celebrities. At least I don't see celebrities I care about very often. And he's very much one of those celebrities where he's not really a celebrity. Most people don't know his name, but you know his face. He's just one of those Asian actors that's really common because he's a character actor and he's fantastic in everything he does. So
They shoot in Vancouver, yeah? Or the shot?
no, Grimm shot in Portland.
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it
'Cause
looks
I was saying, like, I feel like if you shoot in Vancouver, then you're gonna like every science fiction show has the same 12 actors that you just see going around and around and around.
They
so.
shot in Portland, and it's funny because occasionally a Grimm actor will pop up on Portlandia, and I'm always tickled.
So yeah, I don't get my like celebrity moments very often anymore because I work in the industry, so you try to like clamp that down. But
You don't be weird about people you're working
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
I just would have liked to have said, you've been on my mind lately, and I really like you.
That's not creepy.
I know it would. There's no way to make it not sound creepy, especially when you're
Before you go poo, I gotta tell you something.
But that's
Hey,
where
can you
I've been
pinch that
doing.
off? I want to compliment you.
Oh.
And honestly, I was going to tell him it's so great to keep seeing you work, though, because I haven't seen any of the other actors
He's
from
in the
Grimm
stall. It's like,
anywhere.
it's so great to see you work.
You
Oh!
need to see the movie Honey Buddies.
What's Honey
The guy
Buddies?
that's Nick in Grimm.
Yeah.
He like wrote a movie, and that guy Flula Borg, that's like YouTube famous, but was also in Pitch Perfect 2. It's like a bromance movie.
Huh.
It's super cute.
Okay. It would be fun to see him not play Nick. I've only ever seen him play Nick.
I know, because he's so charming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Emily, what about you?
I and 3 of my friends have been playing Pandemic Legacy, which is a board game. It's the original Pandemic, the game. It's a board game where you stop a virus from spreading across the planet. In Pandemic Legacy, it's that game, but every time you play the game, shit changes. So, for example, we were unable to stop the red disease from becoming a pandemic in like game 2. So now that disease, we can quarantine it, we can treat it, but we can't ever cure it again. And in one game, like one of our characters, we pulled a card that required us to delete a character. So that person is now gone and cannot be brought back to the game. They're like, you put stickers on the board to make permanent changes. So every time you play the game, something happens. We have now, I feel like it's because we have represented all 4 Hogwarts houses. You can only play 4 people in the game. And when we played the first one, we discovered that each one of us is a member of a different house. And we were like, holy shit, all of Hogwarts is represented in this game. And so that's why I think we were so successful. We have played 5 rounds in a row and won all 5, which is crazy. But the problem is, like, every time you win, the CDC goes, oh, you guys are doing so great, we'll lower your budget. So now that we won 5 in a row, we have no budget for the next game. So we're like, oh, shit. How are we going? Because so we get, like they take away things that you can do, like the ability to fly one character to another city or whatever. And every character has different superpowers. So like my superpower is that I'm the researcher, so I can give like different disease curing cards to different people, like that they can't do that. And then there's somebody else who can just walk through a city and cure everybody in the city. It's just sort of like everybody's got different power. So you have to learn, you have to figure out like, how do I best use this card to take advantage of your power? And it's a cooperative game, which I love. I love cooperative games. Anyway, it's super, super fun. We were having a really good, if you like cooperative games like me, especially if you know 3 other people who are at the different Hogwarts houses, I highly recommend that. That's really worked out for us. I am the Gryffindor. Anyway, so yeah, fun game. Highly recommend it. Really fun. Really scary at times because you're like, no. Like you can go from having like a disease almost take over the entire planet to having won the game in like 2 moves. And so it's just really nerve-wracking and amazing and fun.
Cool. John, what about you?
So for my commute lately, I've been using Audible to quote unquote read books because I've been against it for a while. I've been like, that's stupid. And now that I've given it a try, it's not stupid, but I still miss words on the page. That said, I've been reading Console Wars, the story of Sega versus Super Nintendo. And it was
Sega lost. Spoilers.
Yes. And so I knew what was happening, and it was always kind of that bittersweet moment. Like, oh, this is a good triumph. This is great. I remember this. You guys did so well. When are you guys going to fuck it up? And it was sad as it happened because it was like...
Sega were... Saturn.
Yep. Saturn. CD. The 32X... And then, yeah, it was...
Dreamcast. They died in their dreams.
Dreamcast should have been good.
They didn't even get to the Dreamcast in the book because it was just such a complete failure after, like, I think the 32X and all that. And Donkey Kong Country had just come out, and it was like, this is what Super Nintendo can still do in its life cycle. And I'm like, that's it.
Yep.
And so then, yeah, everyone disbanded, and it was a very sad but interesting story.
Cool. Sam?
I just finished reading all 3 of Kevin Kwan's Crazy Rich Asians books. So it starts with Crazy Rich Asians and
Everyone's
then China Rich
exploding
Girlfriends.
about that movie on my Facebook.
Yeah, well, it's like the first time in 25 years there's been an all-Asian cast in a studio picture in the United States. It's huge, and these books are so good. And it's the resurrection of, like, an actual studio rom-com with, like, women in it. And it's so freaking exciting. I love it. I loved the books. Like, they were so good, and I loved the way everything wrapped up at the end. It's the perfect beach read. I read all 3 of them in like 2 weeks, and it's just like light and fluffy. And also, I'm like a sucker for lifestyle porn in a big way. And it was so cool because it's like lifestyle porn, but in a different country. So I was like, oh, I'm learning about, like, I could justify it. Like, I'm learning about the socioeconomics of like Singapore. So I was like, I'm getting smarter. But like, really, I'm just reading about like people crashing Bugattis and wearing really nice clothes.
Do they wake up in new Bugattis?
Sometimes no. the amount of wealth on display was like staggering, and people always talk about that being the appeal of like 50 Shades is like the lifestyle porn, but this is so much better because this guy Kevin Kwan actually knows what he's talking about. Like it, and I'm so excited because the movie looks like they're gonna get it right, and it won't be like that time I went to see 50 Shades Freed and like a 2004 Durango outran an Audi A8. I cannot. Anyway, so highly recommend. Super fun beach read, and I'm so excited for the movie.
I'm just wondering, did you grow up watching the Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous TV show?
I mean, I grew up listening to Good Charlotte.
Robin Leach.
I don't know Good
I mean,
Charlotte.
like
There's
Cribs.
a song called "Lifestyles of Rich and the Famous."
I'm just thinking of the TV show.
Cribs was more my jam, but yeah.
Oh, I love
And
Cribs.
now I just watch a lot of YouTube car videos with Will, so I like reading about fancy cars and fancy clothes.
Nice.
Cool.
Yeah.
Now I have Good Charlotte in my head, and everything
I'm
is awful.
sorry.
Take your clothes, cash cars,
God,
and homes,
talk
and just
about
stop complaining.
Terrible pop punk. Some 41's not far behind.
Somebody from
I'd rather
Good
listen to
Charlotte
Sum
is
41.
listening right now, and they're like, "Oh,
Oh, I remember
Oh
when I had
my
a
God,
job.
Benji
when
and Joel,
I
say hi
married
to Cameron
Avril
Diaz for me.
Lavigne? How long was I married to Avril Lavigne? Like
I didn't know
2
you married
days?
Avril
One of the
Lavigne.
guys from Good Charlotte married her.
No,
Wasn't that Good
Derek
Charlotte?
Whibley from Sum 41 married
Sum
Avril
41.
Lavigne. The
you guys know
from
way
the-
more about
yeah.
Good Charlotte and
The
Sum
twins
41
from
than I
Good
ever
Charlotte
expected
are
anyone
married to
know.
Nicole Richie and Cameron Diaz. So
What?
like they made it, you guys.
God.
They married up.
Yep.
Wow.
Are we sure Nicole Richie's marrying up?
That's a good point. Well,
Dude,
at a,
she's
at a
so
time
dope
she was.
now, though.
Is she?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
so freaking cool.
I don't know.
So yes, there's your answer. We figured it
All
out.
right.
Okay, so I feel like we should start today's episode. There it is. It's in my pocket.
The episode's
That's
in
it.
your pocket?
I figure we should start. Done.
Yeah.
Time to slow things down a little bit and get somber.
Yeah.
All right,
So
yeah, this
today,
is not fun.
today's movie is it was a huge award bait movie. People really liked it. I told people that I'm covering it this week, and they were like, "Oh, that's so exciting! I loved that movie." And I'm like,
Really?
Most
of my friends hate this movie.
I like parts of it.
I like One Shot particularly.
I really like. There's like we'll get into it. I really like 4 or 5 scenes out of the 2-hour movie, and that's about it. But we'll get into those when we get
But
there.
marketing was like, it's funny because look at all the jokes Francis McDormand. They never
that's
know how to
'cause
market.
they
market
did that
on.
for In
Yeah.
Bruges as well.
Yeah.
that one. I don't really blame them too much for.
Yeah.
But
how do you market this
yeah,
movie? I don't know.
You
You're
don't.
gonna feel bad.
You just
Come
don't.
here to feel bad.
In Bruges is also funny in that it's like
That's on the
endlessly
poster.
quotable.
Yeah, like-
I love going, here's a gay beer from a gay friend.
Yeah, there's. We'll get into it. Before we do any of that, though, we should do a breakdown. Now that John is back, we now have video breakdowns again.
Yay.
Do you want me to
We
spin
were
the
helpless
camera?
without you, John.
Yeah, I mean, we shot one on my phone, and then it never saw the light of day. It's still on my phone, and I'm the only one who's seen it, and it will stay that way.
It'll
But
be
did
like
someone get naked? Because it
no,
sounds like
it
it's
just
like
it was so
then we
shaky
should-
and embarrassing. It was just not my best work. All right, so here we go. John, you ready?
Yeah.
Sam, are you ready?
Sure.
that's right for this movie.
Yeah, that sounds about right. All right, so here we go. 3 billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri. Stupid title. In 30 seconds, here we go, 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 go.
So, Xander Cage and the things he does for his country. I'm just kidding. I'm sorry. So, this is the shittier movie that has 3 in the title. A really mean lady loses her daughter, unfortunately, to a rapist and a murderer, and she's on the cops to solve it. But, of course, they don't, because literally everyone in this town sucks. She starts kind of a little war. A cop commits suicide. Everyone blames her, even though he was sick. And, like, I don't know, like, racist people say racist shit. Dumb people do dumb shit. And then they go off to murder a guy at the end.
Yeah,
Pretty good. That summed it
Yeah,
up.
that pretty much sums the whole thing up.
We
there.
actually talked about the plot, which is way better than the.
everyone
like,
is
fake
either an
breakdown I did.
asshole or an idiot.
And you got
Yeah.
Well, actually,
6 seconds
Peter,
of
Peter
Triple X in
Dinklage
there,
is
too.
neither.
So. Okay, so
I kind of wish we had somebody on who actually liked the movie so that we could hear why.
Well, that's
I
why-
like and don't like this
Okay.
movie.
So here's my best, and I'll start with this. When faced with renting it for $6 or buying it for $10, I still bought it for $10. And I did that for a few reasons. I think the performances are good the whole way through. I think the actors do a great job with what they're given, but what they're given is not anything good. But that doesn't. So like when Sam Rockwell won his Academy Award for this movie, I still think he deserved it because I think he did a great job.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like I feel like I bought this movie for some performances, but I feel like we should kind of move their way through it. But the thing that I've read about this movie, and that I was trying to figure out a way to try to come at this because I figured most of us were going to be on the side of meh. And I want to put this pitch that I've read on the table and see what we think about it. This movie was about, apparently, not my words, finding the beauty. You actually kind of mentioned when we watched it. The beauty in like the ugliness. Like, here's a whole group of terrible people. Let's see how good they can be. So, like, if this is the worst of the worst, let's find the beauty in that.
Did not work.
And
The beauty at the expense of black people and rape victims. Cool.
Not just that, also gay people.
And gay.
Also,
And little people.
Yeah,
And-
little people. Yeah.
But to me, this movie is a wonderful exercise and should probably be shown in every acting class because the number one thing they tell you when you go to acting classes, the thing you need to do when you play a character, whether or not you identify with them, can relate to them or not, you need to find the thing in that character that makes them love themselves. Because you need
I've
to
heard
be
that before,
yeah.
yes.
So to me, this movie is a great example of that because none of these characters are likable, but they all feel incredibly real. So that just to me that speaks to we've all ran into these people
No, I
in life.
just absolutely, I totally feel the opposite about these characters. I felt like the only person who was real was the replacement police chief.
I also like
he
her
was
son.
he was just the most honorable
The son was good,
person.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he's the only person who felt like he was like walked in and was like, yeah, I know what's going on here. Like he felt like a real fucking person. Everyone else felt so like some kind of stereotype or some kind of like this is what
Yeah,
racist
well,
people
but
are like.
That's my problem with it. In kind of what you're saying there is that like as much as I agree with Chewie that I feel these characters feel real in this world,
they're heightened,
They don't
but-
feel real for our world. So
Yeah.
when you bring in characters like the replacement police chief who feels real for our world, it really kind of comes at odds with the movie. And I feel like this comes from, and I really like Martin McDonagh, and I've only really enjoyed one of his movies, but I will still see anything he's made because I like that one so much. But there's something to be said about like he's not American, he's not from here, and he wrote a very personal film about a small town in America. And there's nothing wrong with that, but at a certain time, like this is where I felt like no matter how good he is, his never being there or doing this kind of showed, like because it felt
yeah.
like it felt
There's
like
a lot of monologues in this movie, which is one
I mean,
of the
he's
things.
a-
that
But not
I
even the
enjoy.
monologues. I don't-
He's a playwright, and that
Yeah.
sort of heightened characters with
Yeah,
the
the
one
heightened
like
works
the chorus
because-
Yeah.
coming in to comment on it is very much like a playwright structure.
yeah,
Yeah.
this
And-
felt more like a play than his other two movies.
I absolutely.
For sure.
I mean, the thing is, like, because I also fucking love Martin McDonagh. Like, I even loved his short film Six Shooter is amazing, and Seven Psychopaths was a meta film about making movies, and it had that really quirky perspective, and it was all like inside itself, which is something he knows about. In Bruges was very personal because he went to In Bruges and had all these feelings about it. No, he's not like a hired killer, but his feelings about In Bruges were translated into that film, and it's also like European, and he knows that world. And yeah, this movie was not something he's familiar with, and it absolutely showed. And it structurally too, I feel like In Bruges is one of the tightest structured films I've ever seen in my life. Like everything about In Bruges is just very specific. This movie structurally was just everywhere. I had no idea what the hell the story was trying, where we were going, who was
It really didn't feel like
charged.
it had a
Yeah.
thing.
No, and like there's a real, and the first time I saw it, I walked away going, I liked it, I didn't love it. Second time, I'm like, I like parts. And
Yeah.
there's the first thing that really bumped me in the movie when the first time I saw it was I hate that it's a world without consequences, and I get that's kind of the theme of it, but it still just didn't feel. It never really clicked like into like this is the theme. It just kind of felt like it's just kind of a shitty world, which also might be the point, but it never rubbed me right. Like she burns down a fucking police station, and everyone knows she did it, and no one cares.
Yeah, it's
Right.
really, really odd with that because everyone that does violent things in this movie, there's no secrets. It's a small town. Everyone knows who everybody else is, and they know your dirty laundry, and they're all okay with just tolerating it.
Which is, I guess, related to the whole premise that the girl's killer got away.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
everyone gets away with everything. But,
Yeah.
like, she's trying to find justice, but justice doesn't exist. Except if you drive away with a shotgun to murder somebody.
Yeah,
I
the
mean-
ending really kind of threw me for a loop because I
So-
had paused halfway through, being like, "Okay, we're gonna get to it. We're gonna get to the kind of the crux of what this movie is," and then at the very
No.
end, when it cut to credits, I was like, "That's it."
For me, I was like, it was a little bit of like a Thelma Louise thing, a little bit of like, do they just go off and they never come back to the town? Do they end up getting themselves killed trying to kill this guy? Brian thinks they just use it as a way to cool off and then just it ends.
There's no chance they go to kill somebody. 0% chance.
Which is even less fulfilling.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like I feel like the better ending would be almost.
They kill the wrong guy.
Yeah, they kill the wrong guy. That would have been almost a more fitting ending for this
Yeah.
movie.
It would be so
That would put a
sad.
punctuation to this
Like,
open-ended
the
sentence.
moroseness would amplify.
But the movie's morose the whole way
Yeah.
through. Just because they say funny things every now and then doesn't mean that the movie's not totally just.
and
like,
honestly,
depressed.
the only reason most of the stuff is funny is because it's terrible.
Yeah.
I mean, she's like in the trailers, they all pitched her as this tough as nails, and Frances McDormand is tough as nails, and she's amazing.
Yeah.
And she was this like takes no shit, and I guess were we supposed to like her? Because I'm very confused
No.
about whether
I'm
we were supposed to
sympathetic
sympathize
towards her, but
Okay.
I don't have to like her to be sympathetic.
I mean, because it feels like she refuses to take responsibility for being a shitty mom. And instead she blames the one, not necessarily a good person, but like not a bad person in this town, which is Willoughby.
oh, he's just a good old boy.
yeah, but he's
That's
not,
a good
like as
person either.
hateable as everyone else.
Yeah.
But she
He
But he's still
enables all of those people.
yeah.
Yeah,
He
he's still-
enables everyone.
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the reason that all those people are there. And when pointed at that, he goes, "Well, what are you gonna do if you get rid of the racist cops, get the homophobic cops?" It's like,
That's true. Only he says the word fag. Which is,
Yeah.
I'm
He
not
makes
not going
two-
that route.
He's
Yeah.
clearly a homophobe himself because
Yeah.
he makes 2 jabs about gay people.
yeah.
And
he's
married,
the best one in town. So
Yeah,
And he's
yeah,
married
yeah,
to a
that's true.
child
This
bride.
seems not bad by comparison,
Yeah.
but he's still not good. Yeah.
I'm really annoyed about his wife because she's like 20 years younger than him or more, and they have 7 to 8-year-old daughters. So it's just like, when the fuck did you marry her and knock her up? Straight out of high school?
yeah,
Compared
Gross.
with like her ex-husband, who's also dating someone extremely young.
Who's an idiot?
Who's an idiot? That's nice.
and then
that's-
the other girl in the advertising agency is an idiot. Like, there's
Yeah.
no good people.
The only person who's got any brains is
Peter
Frances McDormand.
I would say it's Peter
a
Dinklage.
woman. I meant woman who's got
oh
any
yeah.
brains.
Well, you could say maybe her boss at the
She's so underused.
trinket
she's not
shop
really-
might have brains, but she's in prison the
I
whole
actually
movie.
feel like Penelope kind of got the short end of the stick because she's clearly trying to be better than this small town.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And-
she's also one of the 2 people of color in it until the police chief
No,
arrived.
no, I'm
No,
talking
the
about the
girlfriend.
19-year-old
Oh,
girlfriend.
sorry, the girlfriend. I thought you were
she's
talking about the
actually
woman
like
at the- okay.
well read. She's just stuck in a really bad. And you meet girls like that a lot who think that their way out is going to be with an older man. Like
Yeah.
they're bored and they're stunted, so they like date older men because that's the closest thing they have to like any sort of mental
So
stimulation.
it's probably not a whole lot of choice in this
Yeah,
town.
and instead of getting out because they don't have the support system to do that. And that's where like Penelope felt like a more interesting character to me. Like there's literally any avenue this movie could have taken that would have been better, but like examining racist cops through the lens of like a rape victim and using black people as props is just so wrong-headed.
While not saying about anything about any of it.
yeah,
Yeah,
and that, it's
nothing.
like
It would
There's
be, it'd
so
be one
many
thing if those
opportunities.
things had a punchline or an end
point,
a point
but-
to it, a message, like something that here's what you're going to think about at the end of this movie, and the movie demands that you just ignore it.
The thing that they try to say about his character, from what I gathered,
his being
I keep forgetting his name. Hammer.
Sam Rockwell.
Sam Rockwell. His name is Hammer
Iron
in
Man 2.
Iron Man 2.
Justin Hammer.
Oh, all right.
Oh yeah.
You got to speak pregnancy brain.
He's the one villain that they got rid of in the Marvel movies. I'm like, why the frick did you leave him behind? Use
they
him again.
resurrected him as Guy Pearce. They're the same thing. Anyway, Can we talk about that instead?
No.
But so one of the big issues with this movie is it's whether or not you can think of his character as being sympathetic, or whether or not because a lot of people to me said that they hated this movie because they don't like that they say that he gets redeemed at the end, and I'm like, I don't think he gets redeemed at the end.
No one gets redeemed.
Really, honestly, the message of this movie is that he's a product of his upbringing, and it's not his fault, which has a lot of problems within it as well.
Yeah, because we've seen It's Always Sunny. She's raised at least one good son.
Because they talk
Can we talk about that?
She's so good in this movie.
Because especially they almost like say it verbatim in the letter that Willoughby leaves him and be like, I know you got a hard rap in this world with how your parents raised you, your dad died, you to take care of your mom, all this stuff, but you need to learn how to love to be a detective. I'm like, well, okay.
So he murders.
And so it's just such a weird message because, yes, you can be a product of your upbringing, but you need to... That's not a really good excuse because you need to know that and stop it.
It's the excuse we use, or people use today, like, oh, it's just part of the upbringing. It's just how it is.
No, it needs to stop.
Yeah.
It's like, well, then you change it. You become aware of it and you do something about it. And the movie is like, well, it is what it is.
You get the chance where he's starting to be more aware of it, but then the movie ends.
I also, issues with the fact that he's supposedly becoming a better person at the end. So we see that he's racist right off the bat. And then at the end, maybe he's less racist, except how did he get there?
He's still just as racist.
Well,
he's just more aware of it.
But, like, yeah, I mean,
He's just less violent.
You don't show him having, like...
But still totally violent because he's leaving with a shotgun to go kill a guy.
And the thing is, like, you don't... For making such a big deal about how racist he is, you don't see, like, almost any scenes of him. You see, like, one scene of him really interacting with a person of color. Like, and you don't... Like, even at the end, the people of color are in the bar watching him get his beat down, and they're like, oh, stop beating him. And that's it. Like, there's no... That's
because people of color are props in this
yes.
film. They're just window dressing.
You have
to
a
make other
racist
people
person,
seem
but
bad.
you never have opportunities to show any, like... He's just generally racist. There's no point where he's confronted with it, ever.
Yeah. And then just speaking about racism in the movie in and of itself, and whether or not this was McDonough's plan or not, hopefully it wasn't. But like I took issue with you have the one black guy who puts up the billboards, and then you have her
he's
boss.
the closest thing to a black character we get in this movie.
Yeah, but then you have her boss at the trinket shop, who's a black person. And the first time they see each other, the next scene they're on a date, and it's like,
oh my god, you're right.
Really? Like, what are you saying here? It's like,
I'm a black person in this town. You're a black person in this town, and there's no way if there's only two black people in this town that they didn't already know each other.
Yeah,
There's
but it'd
more
be like,
black people because there's someone on the street when he goes and interrogates Banshee for the first time.
Oh, okay.
yeah, but it'd be like the equivalent would be like having a female little person come in the movie, and then the last scene would be her and Peter Dinklage on a date. Like, it all worked out, and it's like, Martin, what are you doing, man?
That's like people who like, I know a gay person. You're gay.
Yeah.
You guys should go out.
You should be married forever.
Also, with how charged that beatdown of Sam Rockwell was in that bar, there's no way the scene ends that way. Like, it'll escalate.
But it does in this universe.
It does in this universe where it's like everything just kind of ends tidily, and it's like,
that's
something
what
of that charge.
It doesn't end tidily. It doesn't end. It's so confusing.
Watching this
both
was so
is and isn't.
frustrating too, because like so much of it borrows from portions of my life. And there's a really great episode where Justin Theroux is guest starring in Parks and Rec, and Ron Swan, and he's like Leslie's attorney boyfriend.
Sure,
I swear I'm getting to a point with this.
I was trying to place where it was in Parks and Rec in my head.
And it's one of my favorite things because he kind of meddles in Leslie's life, thinking he knows better without actually understanding the town of Pawnee and Leslie's background and what her world is. And Ron calls him an emotional tourist, and it's a point that's like really stuck with me. And this movie, watching it, was like someone trying to be an emotional tourist in a space that I've occupied and know intimately.
Is it? Do you
So
think,
to explain a little bit, you have family
Yeah,
in
it
law
was.
enforcement.
Yeah. So my dad was a police officer in a smallish town, not as small as this, but like in the Midwest. We were 4 hours outside of Missouri.
3 hours outside Chicago, like close to major cities.
Yeah, but like right on the Iowa-Illinois border. It wasn't a small, but it's racially diverse, especially the town that I grew up in, more so than your town. Brian and I grew up near each other. But my dad's law enforcement, and he actually did encounter like some really bad politics in his police department. He solved a cold case that was botched because racist police discounted a man's life. There was a drug dealer that was shot in front of his children, and they never bothered to solve the crime. Now my dad, like, my dad is a hero, but not to make him sound like on this like amazing pedestal. Like my dad's cool, but he like really he had to really push back against a lot of internal politics to solve this crime. So I've seen this all firsthand, like how racist police departments in small towns can operate. I've seen like I've lived in these like diverse but weird small towns for a long time, and I've encountered like I've also met cops that are domestic. I mean, we've all met like DV survivors and stuff, but I've also like been in an abusive relationship where I was gaslit to the point where like and just had people say, well, it's your word against his. And so like never physically abused, but like I get this. Like I get this world. I've inhabited this world, and he just got it all wrong. And with and I think he thought he was like coming in and kind of white knighting and like, look what I have to say as like a Scottish playwright about American culture. And it's like, go fuck yourself. I guess for me, like it's just like, go like, stop. You had some interesting threads and you're too stupid or pigheaded or caught in your own shit to pursue any of them.
Even down to the suicide, which
having
experience
Jesus
that is like,
Christ.
it's like the one thing that seems so like, everything else is so untidy, like you said, but like then his notes are so tidy and like sent out and so perfect. It's like the perfect
like,
suicide.
I would
and it's
rather
like, well,
watch
fuck
P.S.
you.
I Love You if this is the movie that you're gonna try to make, homie.
Yeah.
But yeah, like it's just this movie is a very good example of like somebody who's like standing outside a window thinking they can do everything inside.
It's
Like,
clear
just,
he's never lost somebody.
well,
to suicide.
He
Like,
might
it's-
have. I mean, you can't really make those bold claims. He might have, but he could have taken something different from it. He just doesn't know how to articulate it in a
Right.
film. Like,
And I was thinking about like in Bruges, there is one, first of all, not like 100 of them. There is one letter that is read out loud, and it's funny, but it also is our first introduction to Harry. And it's full of cuss words, and that letter serves a purpose. It's not preachy. It also gives you a laugh. Like it's used judiciously. Here, it's just all these letters are like, let me tell you all of the things that I've been thinking. Like it's like doing a lot of telling, not showing.
like you could totally see this being read aloud around an audience with curtains closed while they're putting
Absolutely.
new sets up. Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It also feels a little like it feels like a decent draft of a play, but a first draft of a script where he really needed someone to come in and say, find your focus.
He
What
needed
are
somebody
you
from
doing? Edit,
small
edit,
town
edit.
who knows small town. Like he needs like the people who did like Stranger Things, like somebody who knows like what it is to be in a small town and
Yeah.
not to be like mocking it or just like doing the stereotypical like or just stereotypes. Like it just felt like small town stereotypes that
It is
nobody.
a fine line.
I mean,
Yeah.
it does feel. It's kind of like when people go over to Europe and they go to the quote unquote American section of the grocery store, and what you find is a jar of
$10 peanut
no,
butter.
that it's not Floam, where it's
I love Floam.
Schlurm.
it's like icing, but it's puffier, like marshmallows.
Whipped cream, Cool Whip.
Marshmallow fluff.
Oh my
Sta-
God. Yeah, marshmallow fluff, a jar of fluff. I think that's what it's actually called.
Still speaking pregnancy brain. over here.
And that's what they have. I read a thing about like European countries and the American section of the grocery store, and that's the one common thing is that there's this jar of marshmallow fluff, and that's what they think of Americans.
But it's kind
So
of
it's like that. It's so negative and
Yeah,
just be like we're all fat.
I remember,
terrible.
Somebody telling me one of their favorite American shows was Jerry Springer, and I was like, no, you have that?
I mean,
This is what
that's a
they
pretty good
think
one.
of us
But no.
sometimes.
Mario's
Not
better,
if that's going to
though.
be our impression overseas.
But there is something to be said. Like it is kind of interesting to be on the receiving end of this because we're usually not.
Yeah.
Like more often than not, it's
That's
us
true.
just steamrolling other countries' culture
Yeah.
and going, "Yeah, we know Ireland. Fuck you." And it's like,
They're all drunk and they're hilarious.
yeah, check out Grabbers. Although I think that was made by Irish people. But it's like there is something like kind of interesting to be on the receiving end of this because usually we're not. So
Yeah.
maybe that's interesting. Maybe people across seas are like, "Yeah, this
And
is a
that
great
could
one."
be
It's
why
like,
so many people hate it because it is very offensive to what people think American culture is.
Yeah. I want to talk about some scenes that I actually enjoyed in the movie because as much as I want to just take a dump on it the whole way through, there are some things that I actually think are really good in it. And the guy I want to start with is he's the guy from X-Men First Class. I'm blanking.
Banshee.
He played Banshee in First
Okay.
Class.
Caleb
And the
Landry
brother in
Jones.
Get Out.
Yeah. And he was also the brother in Get Out. He's been having a pretty
It's a
good.
very good career so far.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
small, but
Yeah, but I want to look up his name. Did you?
Caleb Landry Jones.
That's it. Thank you. He's great, and I really like him throughout the entire movie. Like he's a character that actually felt real to me. He didn't feel like forced in any situation. And given the moment to be a shithead, many times he doesn't go that route. And I buy it every time. Like, even when he's forced to share a hospital room with the guy who threw him out of a fucking window,
Oh man.
he still goes and gets him a glass of orange juice. Like, and I love those moments, and like the performance in that scene just totally sells it. Of just like, holy fuck, I'm stuck in here with you, and you can just see that he hates it, but he's going to be the better person. And I thought that was great.
It mirrors his intro with Mildred.
Yeah,
Because he's like, oh, I'm so annoyed, blah, blah, blah. We have these billboards. What do you want with them? And he's kind of making fun of her, and then he cuts her a really good deal.
yeah.
Like,
Because he realizes who she is.
yeah, there's a kindness underlying, like there's that bravado, because I think he probably needs it to survive in this town.
Yeah, he's
and
kind
then
of-
He
just
looks
see that
like a
he's
guy
kind
whose
of
dad recently died and he inherited the store.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I like that. Like, and that stays a theme through his character the whole way through. I thought he personally, and I know people might disagree, I think he was the strongest character in the whole movie.
Well,
He's only in it for like 10
Him and
minutes.
Peter Dinklage are like the moral center, if
Yeah.
anything.
Oh,
Because
I
they're the
love-
only ones that don't do
Yeah.
anything wrong, and they're trying to be good people.
But Peter
Oh.
Dinklage still covers up for Frances McDormand.
He
burning down a
also
police
and he
station.
also takes advantage of that and parlays it into a date.
Yeah, like,
Yes, yeah.
Nice scare.
But I do like when he finally lets her have it at the end of the date, and he's like, he basically tells her she's a bitch.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
And
you
I'm
know.
not the catch.
Yeah.
which, I mean, he kind of is a catch. He's a good-looking
He's
dude.
a
Which
He's
is
really
still,
good.
it's such a.
He's just
I don't
short,
know.
that's
It was
all.
still such a nice guy move. Like, oh, you don't like me? Well, guess what? I think you're a bitch.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, dude, come on. I did
But he's
like,
right, though. She is a bitch.
yeah, I like her son though, and he delivered
Yeah.
those. He delivered those lines better. You old cunt. I'm not old.
That's one thing that I would like to see the flashback to the daughter. Like, I love and hate that scene because you can have those conversations with your parents where you make jokes. They're kind of terrible jokes, but they have love behind them. And he says, the brother says, "Don't be a cunt," and then the mom says, "There's only one cunt in this household," or something like that.
No, we don't say. There's no more cunts in this house.
Yeah.
And-
And then that
Are you gonna leave?
That
Yeah.
whole scene has like negative but positive feelings to it. And then suddenly she's just screaming at her daughter, "I hope you do get raped."
Yeah.
And then I'm like, "Whoa, that just stung negative. Like, there was no positive swing to that at all."
And I think that's one thing that bothers me is at no point in this movie does she acknowledge that she fucked up. It's always everyone else's
Well,
fault.
I think that's what's driving her insane. I think this movie, she's losing her mind, which is illustrated by her doing that thing with the slippers talking to each other. So I really just feel like
you
she's
gonna
losing.
crucify the motherfuckers.
Yeah, I feel like she's slowly losing her mind this entire movie. Because she knows she's responsible in some way, and she desperately needs somebody else to blame.
That's not fair to say that she was responsible because she had a
no, she
fight
was
with her
responsible.
daughter.
She's
Yeah.
partially responsible.
yeah, she clearly is not a very good mother.
Well,
No,
I
but,
mean,
like,
she-
the
but
reaction
her
of
being
her
a
son
bad
is
mom
also-
is not why her daughter got raped and killed.
No, but she's blaming
She's
herself.
her
That's
whole
what I
life-
mean. She
yeah,
feels responsible.
She's blaming herself, and instead of offering herself or anyone in this town forgiveness, she's trying to find a sense of control that she's lost.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
completely.
She's not dealing with it. She's
Yeah.
not acknowledging that
But
she
I just
said
think we
something
need to
super
be
shitty
really
to her
careful
daughter.
in like discussing victims of rape and the families of victims of rape, not to blame them for what a fucking rapist and murderer do. Like, I'm sorry, just
Okay, so yeah,
point
I'll
of order.
rephrase
Yeah.
that. What I meant is she's not dealing with it. She's not confronting her own feeling of responsibility and acknowledging it. Instead,
Yeah.
she's running around blaming everyone else instead of dealing with her own like guilt or her own like she's just pretending
Yeah.
it doesn't exist.
My God, there needs to be a therapist in this town. I don't think there is
shit.
one.
Oh, he'd be book solid. Or she. What's
Actually,
wrong
no
with
one
me?
would go see him because therapy's for losers.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
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 It's just that scene itself also comes at a very like, oh, of course the scene would come at this moment.
Well, and it's not even that, but it's like, of course she'd have that interchange. Like,
That's-
it's just like the movie's just kind of on the nose.
It
like,
felt like
wow.
an add-on too. Like, we can't have a movie about this girl who's died without showing her.
Yeah.
And it was like,
The way she's in a
so
refrigerator?
so she gets one token scene, and then
one token awful scene.
it's like, oh, okay.
And that's all we see of her. And that
Like,
the choice
just
was
take
to show
the
the
cab
awfulness.
money from your mom. Like, how hard would that
Yeah.
have been?
And it's such a weird choice to have the only
No,
thing we
I don't
see.
know where cabs are in this town, though.
yeah, right.
It's just weird that the only thing we get to see of the daughter is her in an awful way to see her.
Yeah.
Just not flattering. They're fighting, And it's just like, what was the point of that?
Yeah, this movie.
If only to be on the nose. And then, well, what? Why? Like, what are you trying to do here?
And she has Nirvana posters in her bedroom.
Of course, because of course she would. Yeah.
But this movie has like Mark Millar levels like hatred for its characters. It's just kind of like weird. There's one more scene that I want to talk about that I actually really enjoy, and it's just 100% performance because it just shows kind of how pathetic this guy is, and it's the scene where Sam Rockwell gets fired. I think that entire scene, like from the moment the replacement sheriff or chief shows up to the end of that scene, I think is phenomenal.
There's a really great shot in that was my favorite moment of the movie, actually, because of the shot. It's when he's got his feet up on the desk and the camera is like the feet are in frame and the cop is behind a pillar and he leans back to look at Sam Rockwell, and it's like, oh, what the fuck is your problem, face?
Yeah.
But it's like the way he leans, the framing of that shot that was probably my favorite moment in the movie because it was just a really well framed scene.
Good.
I think the entire sequence is really, really well done. Like if the whole movie had been done that well, we might be having a different conversation today.
Yeah.
Because like that one had a good comment on like racist cops, like how they need to be put in their place, and the whole scene of like, give me your gun and your badge, and he stands up, hands with a gun, and then doesn't know where his badge is. It's just like it's painful to watch, but in like a really good way. Like it's a performance that Sam Rockwell, it's like totally in his wheelhouse, and he just nailed it.
Well, from like a props and set deck standpoint for his character as well, they did a very good job.
Oh yeah,
Because like with him reading comic books, he has toys on his desk. He has an open jar of Jif peanut butter with a knife in it. Like he's clearly a man-child. And then when he's at home, he's totally a slave to what his mom says, and he has a pet turtle. Like this is a man who has not really grown up. He just got a grown-up job.
and even then, it kind of feels like somebody just gave him that job. Like he was in the academy. Like they joke about how he was in it way too long, and
his mom was played by Sandy Martin, who we all know is
Max's mom.
Max's mom on Always Sunny, and it's just kind of great to see her talk.
Yeah.
She says terrible things, but she's talking.
Yeah, she's not doing.
But I will agree
That
that
means
scene
maybe?
that scene felt satisfying, and maybe that, if you could sum up the problem with this movie, is nothing ever feels satisfying except for that scene.
And
Everything
again,
else is just sort of left open.
And I wonder if that was the point, and if it just didn't, like, if it just wasn't executed properly, because people loved this movie and they think that it worked, and I don't know why. Like,
Because no one saw Wind River.
I didn't say
I
Renee.
wanted to see
gosh.
Wind River.
Way better movie about a small town law enforcement dealing with a string of rapes in the Native community, and they handle it really well. It's awesome.
It's the
and
same
like
director
an
as Hell or High Water, right?
yes, and
Same director? I
or-
thought it was not. I thought it was the same
I think
writer.
it's the same writers.
Oh.
Because it was wonderful, and everyone who watched 3 Billboards and liked it should watch Wind River and think on your sins. Anyway, but yes,
I think it might be the same people who really think Crash is a great movie. It's the idea of white people telling
I
other
hate
white
Crash.
people about racism.
and that's
makes
another
us
movie
all
where I'm
be
like-
like, oh yeah, this is important, but you're saying that about the wrong things.
That's another movie where I go, there's scenes in this that really work, and
Yeah.
that's about it. And this is the same problem. This is a movie where scenes work, the movie does not.
Yesterday we were talking about how Brian and I have movies that he hates, like fervently hates more films than I, and we were trying to figure out what movies I fervently hate, and we just thought of Transformers, but I also hate Crash.
That's true.
Fucking hate that movie.
I was talking to somebody the other day who said they had a friend who once was such a fake woke person that they walked up to a group of black people at a bar and was like, I just want you guys to know I'm an ally for you.
Oh God.
Oh no. And they almost like beat the shit out of this person. So
Yeah,
it's just
you
like,
don't know them.
oh gosh,
don't do that. Don't ever
No.
announce yourself as an ally, you dipshit.
Ooh. That's kind of like, I'm an ally for you now. Follow me into this van.
Yeah.
Come on, fellow allies.
I just would have loved for them to actually be like real, like hard-edged criminals, and they were like, "Okay, we'll help come
Yeah.
rob this place with us now." You don't know who the frick they are. Just stop making.
Oh my god.
God, I feel uncomfortable just hearing that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Don't just walk up to strangers and say that shit.
I think we should move into quotes. I don't know
Wait,
what else.
can
we
I say one more thing?
Sure.
Okay, the deer scene. Can we talk
Oh,
about
the
the
terrible
deer
CGI.
You guys, can the CGI deer and the CGI baby from American Sniper ride off into the CGI sunset?
Only if they can go with the CGI rhinos from Black Panther.
Obviously.
But also, it's just this ridiculously long, on-the-nose speech to the deer. And my roommate was telling me about the movie Queen. They had a similar, the Queen rather. They had a similar scene where there's all these people tracking this deer, and Elizabeth finds herself alone with it, and all she says to it is, "Oh, you beauty." and she doesn't say anything else. And you get the idea, and that deer ends up becoming a huge metaphor for like her life, and it teaches her a lesson, and you don't need it explained, and it doesn't. But when in the opposite is here, Mildred gives this long speech to the deer that's super on the nose, and yet I still don't understand what the fuck that scene was about.
I mean, it's
I think
even
it was
done
an
better.
attempt at humanizing her more or something
Alright.
like that.
But it's even done better in like The Sopranos with the ducks in the first season, like the first episode. It's like, yeah, like having a character who have an emotional connection to an animal. It's done a lot, and it's done well a lot. But having them monologue at the animal forever about like, hey, you might be my reincarnated daughter, but you're not because that's bullshit. It's like, then what the fuck are we doing here?
And
Like-
why couldn't you find an animal wrangler? Come on, just get a real
Get a
deer.
goddamn deer. They're everywhere.
They're not hard.
Or have it be a bunny.
Yeah, or anything else.
And I'm still
A
You can't get a deer,
raccoon.
you know?
I'm still confused about why deer became like the American ideal of like perfection and innocence.
Because they taste really good.
Oh.
Is that why?
They taste so pure.
You know what would be amazing if it was like a possum that walked up and just was like, and then she was like,
That
you
would've
might be
been
my
great.
daughter.
That would have been
You
such
bitch.
a better scene.
That would actually have
Okay,
been
so
more
the
fitting.
reincarnated soul, my daughter is in that possum, not in you.
Honey
dear.
badger.
Because it's like their whole relationship was so like obviously like full like really tumultuous, and now here's this gentle deer, and she's like, you might be my daughter. Why the fuck would that deer be your daughter? Your relationship with your daughter was nothing like your relationship with this.
The deer
CGI
pulls out
deer.
like bares its fangs and pulls out a knife.
Wow, you are my daughter.
Yeah, wow.
I mean, if
done
anything,
well.
that just ties into the whole idea of the purity of the young woman being scorned and raped and blah, 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 and how awful. That's the greatest sin of all, of potentially raping a virgin. Because, I don't know.
This movie's a rough ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're moving to quotes so we can.
Next week will be more fun.
Yeah. Or last week. I don't
Or
know when these are all
whatever
coming out. So I'll go first with my quote because it's again from Wilby or Red, my favorite character in the movie, and the only one that I think is worth watching. It's when he first comes and has all the police officers basically like, we know you're the ones who put up the billboards. We need to know who bought the billboards. And he's like, I can't disclose that information. And the cop says, where'd you read that? And he goes, a book. What book, genius? The book called Suck My Butt. It's none of your business.
That was good. That was good.
I'll take my quote from him as well, but in the hospital when he's dealing with Sam Rockwell, and he just screams at him, "Stop crying!" Like
That's a good one.
I don't want to hear you cry. I hate you.
I'm really obsessed over the deer scene. Martin McDonagh is amazing and a brilliant writer. So it's really upsetting when he writes something so on the nose as the following quote that she tells to the deer. She got killed and now she's dead forever.
No.
That's snort-worthy.
Oh, that's a swing and a miss there.
Some grade A writing right there.
Jeez. It's that Academy Award nominee writing
Yeah.
right there. That got nominated for a fucking Academy Award.
You know, was this movie...
Crumble, crumble.
This movie came out last year, which was 2017. I don't know how long it took him to make it or write it, but like, it would be an amazing response from a British person about Trump becoming president.
Sure.
It is a movie about terrible racist people.
Yeah,
It's
and
about nothing, so it can be about everything, right?
bad dialogue totally works into Trumpism.
This movie is genius. We're all wrong.
Brilliant. So my quote is when Mildred bursts into the police the police station. She's like, "Hey, fuckhead!" And Dixon's like, "What?" And the sergeant's like, "Don't say that, Dixon." When she comes in calling you a fuckhead, it's like just his response. What? It's kind of encompasses the movie too.
Don't reply to someone who calls you a dickhead.
Fuckhead.
Fuckhead.
So
I have the exchange between Dixon and the desk sergeant, and Dixon says, "What are you, an idiot?" And the desk sergeant says, "Don't call me an idiot, Dixon." And he says, "I didn't call you an idiot. I asked if you was an idiot. That was a question."
That's much better than Emily's line. Emily's line is very upsetting.
I'm seeing red from it. I'm also looking at your shirt too. So
Which question is a thing of law enforcement white guys asking a black man for his papers a reference to slavery?
Oh.
I don't know. This
mean,
movie
she's
doesn't.
Because if he's like, I'm a
asking
free
for-
man, let me see your papers. Like, I feel like that was a thing at one
I mean,
point.
it could have
Yeah.
been. I don't
It's
know.
also just the constant. You have to validate yourself all the time. Like even though he walked in there with authority, they're like,
Oh yeah.
let me
Yeah,
see
suit
your.
He had a
papers."
badge
Yeah.
on his belt.
You don't.
And-
you don't fit with my idea.
Also,
of
they
a cop.
obviously didn't watch The Wire.
Yeah, this guy has authority. All right, so review system for today is going to be this one's entirely interpretive, and you guys can do whatever the hell you want with it. Movies who don't know what they're talking about.
Oh man. Okay.
Huh.
I'm going to go first with Showgirls.
You love that movie.
I do love that movie, but it's awful, and I like this movie, and it's not very good. I should just stop there before I make this worse. But no, basically, I'm going with that one because it's a movie where I don't think anyone other than fucking Verhoeven knows what the hell it's about, and everyone thinks it's about one thing, and it might be about something else, and it might just be about could we get Elizabeth Berkley to get naked for an entire movie? Nope, turns out we can. But like the movie, it's just so out of touch with everything that it's kind of this beautiful mess, and I almost wish this movie had been more of a beautiful mess instead of just a depressing one.
I have one.
Go
I
for
think
it.
I referenced it already, but 50 Shades Freed.
Fuck. I was
Not
gonna say
only-
50 Shades.
Well, there's 3 movies. I only picked one. This one is a bad example of a BDSM relationship. It's a completely unrealistic example of like what happens when someone gets kidnapped. And they have that freaking Dodge Durango chasing down the Audi. It's unforgivable.
Next.
Willard. Rats don't do that. They're not always screaming. They don't really make noise unless you hurt them. And they're not going to try to take control of your mind. Like,
I mean, ours do every night.
well, yeah. There are bad rats out there, but they're not all this evil, guys. Stop making it bad like that.
All right, I'm
I
gonna
don't know.
go with the obvious one since it was mentioned, but to me, this is the version of that movie. It's Crash. This is today's Crash.
Yeah.
100%.
Crash, boom, bang.
That's the sequel title. Crash 2. Crash Boom Bang.
I'm gonna go after a movie that a lot of people love. I'm sorry. Dangerous Minds.
No, I don't think that aged well at all.
No, it's not. And I was a school teacher. That is not what teaching is like.
No, really?
As a white lady, you do not walk into a room full of black kids, go, I was a Marine, and they all suddenly love you, and suddenly you save them from their sad little
Were you playing
black
Coolio
lives.
as you said
You
it though?
just
Because you got to play
need-
Coolio.
You gotta play Coolio.
To feel like you belong or to make them feel that way, you need to sit in your chair backwards and put on a leather jacket.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Everything I know about life is now just in question.
Yeah.
It's not, guys. That is not. Don't be a teacher if you think it's going to be Dangerous Minds. But
I
that's
thought,
what
I thought
people
every
used to
class
say.
was like that. Hey, you kids.
That's what people would always say to me when I would tell them I was teaching in a low-income neighborhood. Is they'd always be like, "Oh, like Dangerous Minds," and I would be like, "No, no, more like To Sir with Love." That's a good movie.
It does have one of my favorite lines of all time, though. It's when he orders a chicken. He's like, "I'll have a chicken, a whole one."
Honestly,
such a great line.
I haven't seen that movie since it was in theaters, so I don't even remember it very well.
I've watched it many times just for that one.
I have
scene.
no urge to rewatch it.
Okay, so that brings today's episode to a close. Hopefully
Yeah.
you made it all the way through and you didn't just go, "They're wrong, fuck you."
Somebody definitely
Oh,
did.
for sure.
Somebody's already destroyed their listening device and can no longer hear us talking.
Joke's on them. Their device was expensive.
And then we're supporting the economy because they have to go out and buy a new one.
Yep.
I do feel bad that we didn't really have the perspective from someone who actually enjoyed this movie.
They would have had an upsetting day as we all
That's
jumped down their throat. So
very
maybe we
true.
did them a
I don't
favor.
actually know anyone who adores this movie.
So I'm not sure where we are release-wise because we are recording a whole bunch of what I like to call evergreen episodes because Chewie and I are going to disappear when a baby shows up. So either next week is Jumanji, or it could be Murder in the Orient Express, or it could be any other thing.
So I'm either back or not back again, depending.
Who knows?
This is going to be very confusing for you.
But I do have 2 episodes finished of our new show, Venture Brothers, or Venture Bros, a Venture Brothers podcast. We are recording 2 more next week, so we'll have 4, and those will start coming out as well as these. And then, yeah, that's everything I had to plug for that. Oh, and go to athpod.com. Sam, do you have anything to plug?
Not really. Keep enjoying the Grinch advertisements.
Cool.
We need more.
June.
Okay.
June.
So if it's June now, it's already out. And if it's not June
Yeah,
now, it's
go
not
to the
out.
theater.
Wait
Check
for
it
June.
out.
Nice.
Emily, anything to plug?
EmilyBlakeSews.com.
What-
Hire me to
what?
make a cosplay for you, or buy a 13th Doctor coat, which you can find in my Etsy shop, which is called Emily Blake Sews.
Hooray!
I will also plug my Etsy shop since I finally started putting stuff back on it. Right now it has all of our vintage bedding sheets that I would like to sell. I recently sold the fitted Jokers one, so I was just like, oh, yay. But that is called Novelty Deer, and it's spelled those way. Those are
Deer's
supposed
the
to be
animal is
spelled.
Deer's and Deer Chewie.
Deer
How
is
do
in
you spell
deer,
your name?
Chewie.
Dearest
CGI
Chewie.
deer.
No CGI Deer.
Novelty CGI Deer. There you go.
Novelty Deer.
As a frequent customer of Chewie's, I can attest to the quality of her taste.
Oh, thank you. I'm kind of sad to get rid of all of our old sheets, but I'm like, what am I actually going to do with these? I've held them on for them for years.
We've moved them.
And our child will
Twice.
probably not care about any of these things.
He will care.
We're holding on to the Ninja Turtle stuff because he might care about
Yeah,
that
you
one.
will. Okay, so that's it for today. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye!